Hello there. I think we're live. In case you need to be socially distanced whilst watching online, you could put your mask on. Not really necessary, I know, but we're all trying to stay socially distanced. This presentation, along with my colleague in London, who's from Austria, that's confusing. So I'm UK, but based in Austria and the UK. And this particular session is all about Brexit and its impacts upon the creative arts community. That means artists, which include musicians, dancers, actors, also technicians, promoters, managers, anybody, in fact, who wants to continue to work after Brexit in both directions. So it's about people wanting to go and play in the UK, which is probably going to be the focus, of course, of this particular session, and also UK musicians who want to go and work in the EU, or the EU 27 after Brexit, which is, of course, on the 1st of January 2021. Just a quick introduction of who I am, why I'm here, what I'm doing, and why do I know anything. Okay, for the last 20 years, I've run 2 music agencies out of the UK and Central Europe. I'm a music manager, artist occasionally, a sound engineer, producer, and for 8 years I was national chair of one of the UK Musicians Union sections, the FRTM section back in the day. So I've worked a lot on international levels, and I'm also a UK sponsor. That means I can issue certificates of sponsorship, which I'll come to later. The reason I created something called UK Europe Arts Work Info at the end of December is my attitude towards Brexit is not necessarily that it is a good thing. Yes, that's called diplomacy. So what I've tried to do is to create a situation where we could all continue to work and maintain as far as possible that we're not going to have borders between us. There are going to be real changes. Oh, and something to say as well. After this particular session, online there will be 10 videos, 10 short videos that I present on each of the points that you'll see that I present today. They're sort of quick 3-minute videos about what this is about, because it is a complicated subject. But guess what? It's all still possible. We can all still work in both directions, and it is not as difficult as you might think going into the UK. So I'm going to bring Alex, my colleague at the Austrian Culture Forum in London. Do you want to say hello, Alex?
Hello. It's great to be here. Shall I introduce myself quickly now? Yep.
Yeah, please.
My name is Alex. I am originally from Austria. I'm currently based in London, where I work for the Austrian Cultural Forum, where I am responsible for music, theatre, and literature. For everyone who doesn't know what the ACF is doing or what it is, we are the cultural section of the Austrian Embassy, and we're also tied to the Foreign Ministry in Austria. And I would say our main aim is to promote cultural contacts and to strengthen relationships in the arts between the UK and Austria. And we do that in very different fields. My main focus is definitely in music, but we also do that in visual arts, in film, in science, and so on. The list is longer. It was really nice to listen to the panel earlier, because I think it also came up how essential it is, because music is crossing borders, and how essential it is also after Brexit to keep this alive. And this is also one of my main focuses I'm working on. It's also bringing artists together, strengthening these kind of relationships, linking up people. We at the ACF have the possibility to support artists that are planning to come to the UK from Austria. It can be done in very different ways, from like linking you up with people. We also try, obviously, to keep a lot of relationships and strengthen them here within the UK, to be able to link you then up with people here. It can be accommodation, it can be maybe helping up and helping you in finding a venue, but also the financial support that needs to be mentioned here, because hopefully in the future that will be also assisting you with financing visa costs. It's also traveling costs, and even if you need any advice, and if you're planning to come to the UK and you're a musician or artist, please get in touch, because I'm sure we can find away on working together, maybe supporting you. We also do have a small little venue in central London, which is in some cases very, very useful and helpful. And we have had plenty of lectures and concerts and film screenings there. So this is also maybe an opportunity to work together. And I'm very happy today to be able to participate in this workshop with you here today, because I think we're both on the same page, obviously, that Brexit has caused so many confusion, especially in the music industry, and it caused so many concerns as well. People kind of got hesitant in terms of future planning, setting up shows, tourings in the UK. And yeah, it's just a lot of uncertainty that is happening. And I really do hope that after this panel, maybe we took some concerns of you away, and maybe we can reassure you that it will be doable. There will be a few obstacles, but it's absolutely nothing impossible. And it's brilliant. Definitely check out Ian's website, because it's brilliant what he's doing, especially the videos you mentioned earlier, because it's so helpful. After all of the information you can find online, especially on government websites, to actually haven't broken it down in like little video clips, and it makes things very much clearer for everyone, I think.
Cheers, Alex. Thanks very much. One thing to say before I ask the lights to be dimmed is that the project is totally self-funded, and I asked two colleagues in the UK, Roger Patterson, who is a carnet expert of many years, working in the rock and pop industry and general logistics industry, but also Mark Ringwood, who was the main UK music industry coordinator and bridge to the UK Borders Agency, so people wanting to come in and out. So we're totally apolitical. The idea is to give you clear, fact-checked information that allows people to make proper, clear decisions about whether or not you can play. Whether a promoter wants to look at other costs, there will be, but it's not political in any sense, irrespective of any of our views, which I'm sure most of you can guess. So, before any more ado, lights, gentlemen, please. Oh, look at that, what timing. Yeah, that was cool. I enjoyed that. Okay, so I'll come out front just briefly so I can turn around and see this clearly. Brexit, real impacts and pragmatic strategies for minimizing disruption and maximizing opportunities to work. In other words, let's keep working. The disruptions are inevitable because from the 1st of January next year, whatever happens, whether or not there's agreement between the EU and the UK, which, let's face it, over the past few days is looking increasingly unlikely, but who knows, then we're going to be impacted. What does that mean? It means that, in effect, anyone going into the UK from the European Union and anyone going from the UK into the European Union will be treated as third country nationals. So what happens then? What's the problem? So you've got assumptions affecting confidence and impact on booking shows. Promoters are going to go, what's happening? Can you be sure you can get here? What are your obstacles? So obviously we're trying, and you should try if you're artists or managers or on that side of the equation, to give those promoters the clear information about what is necessary. It's not actually that difficult. The problem is, over the last year or so, there's been a lot of disinformation. Now, I'm not saying that's from the governments. You can make your own minds up about that. But there have been people within the industry who are trying to leverage Brexit in order, well, initially to stop it. Whether or not you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, I know what I think. And some of the information that was put out, in particular, going into the UK, was incorrect. Here's the real deal. So what are the actual things we're going to need to look at? We have visas, work permits, and what really happens at the border in both directions. We've got carnets for equipment. Not merchandise, that's incorrect actually, I forgot to correct it. So you do not need a carnet for merchandise, I'll come back to that shortly. And then unintended consequences. CITES. If you don't know what CITES is, it's the agreements, national treaties on endangered species and rare woods. Why am I talking about that? Well, it just so happens that musicians tend to carry around with them instruments. And some of those instruments may include a rare wood, probably not an endangered species. I think that's probably unlikely. Of course, we're talking about ivory as well, but the problem is, until this point in time, when musicians in particular have been crossing borders within the EU, and this will continue in the EU, if you're going into the UK, you have to be certain your instrument does not contain any rare wood. If it does, and you do not have a certification for it, customs can confiscate your instrument permanently. Don't freak out. There is a system where you can do that. I'll come back to that later. Okay, tax. Good news. Well, the bad news is you still have to pay it. The good news is, recently I was told by the UK Embassy in Vienna, or a friend of mine there who'd checked this, that the double taxation arrangements have been re-ratified, the treaties have been re-ratified, which means that there's no real problem about double taxation between the UK and Europe. So in terms of tax, there's not much change at the moment, which means, of course, that affects payments. Again, no real change in both directions. I've put these on there for today, and you'll see links to all this on the website as well, just to reassure people that there are no real changes to that aspect of work post-Brexit. Third country nationals, all EU states, Schengen, the same. Nope. They are in terms of going into the UK, but if you want to come and work from the UK into Europe, each one of the European 27 territories has their own rules for allowing creatives to work in their country. Whether or not you need a visa or a work permit, it depends very much on what that country's regulations are. There is something called a Schengen Category C visa, which I'll come into later. But this focus today really is for the UK and going into the UK for work. So again, it's a complex subject. And we don't have hours to talk about it, thankfully. Probably most people would agree that's a good thing. But at the same time, I want to give you an indication of what happens. On the UK Europe Arts Work Info website, there is a listing of all 27 European states and a link through to most of their pages for explanation about what's required. For example, in Austria, up to 1 month, visa-free, except you can only go to one place and perform it in one place for 1 month. It's an exception, but check that out on the website. Now to the one that I think most people will be interested in, into the UK. What you're going to require after Brexit, or when Brexit starts properly on the 1st of January, I received just 2 days ago an email from the UK Borders Agency and some friends that work with them that it's been confirmed that all EU nationals will definitely be treated as third country nationals. It's fairly obvious, but it's actually been made official now. That means that you will require a visa to go into the UK, or possibly, depending on what happens, something called a certificate of sponsorship. The two things are very different, and there are several visa routes to go into the UK, which is what this slide is for. By the way, this PowerPoint presentation I have provided to Waves as a PDF download, so it may be available later from the website, and of course it will be up online on YouTube or any other platforms after, I was going to say this performance, too used to being on stage, after this particular session. There'll also be links through to the video explainers that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's go for it. Third country nationals, several work routes for temporary workers. The top one, visa Tier 5 creative and sporting visa. That allows you to come into the UK for up to 1 year. Cool. Yeah, great. Except the hurdle for that visa is quite high, or it's higher than the others. It's also more expensive. It's part of the points-based system that the UK uses for visas, and particularly working visas. Now, under normal circumstances, that visa would require a certificate of sponsorship, which you have to have from a UK work sponsor. That could be a venue, a festival, if they've registered with UK Borders, or someone like me who is registered as a sponsor for certificates of sponsorship. You then get the certificate. You also need contracts, letters of invitation, proof that you are an artist. Now, that usually means things like publicity materials, reviews, websites, etc. And that's all put together and done online via the UK government website. Again, I'll do some links for this in the videos later, in the online presentation. And you could also possibly have to pay the National Healthcare Surcharge. It's a very small amount of money, but it's towards the health service in the UK if you should need to use it. You can probably guess by now, most artists going into the UK don't really want to spend a year there, or maybe would like to pop in and out of the UK, but don't want to go through the hassle of applying for a Tier 5 creative and sporting visa. The good news, you don't have to. I know I was talking to someone yesterday, they go, really? Yeah, I said, yeah, really, and it's a lot less expensive. So there are two other routes. I'll go to the last one first, and that's the certificate of sponsorship on its own. There are varying rates for this depending on who provides the certificate of sponsorship. Sometimes if you're invited to an event, they'll do it for free. If it's a private contractor, it can be anywhere from 30, 40, 50 pounds up to hundreds of pounds, depending on who you go to, so be careful. Currently, artists from the US do not require a work visa in the UK officially, but they do require a certificate of sponsorship. So just a certificate of sponsorship, cool. So if things go well, really well, for European artists wanting to come into the UK, then that is going to be the simple route. It would be cheap, easy to get if you find a sponsor. The sponsor normally needs some basic information about where you live, what you do, and your address in your home country, etc., and also the place of work or your main place of work in the UK. So that's easy, that's cool. The other route, which is the most common route, and which is probably of most interest to European artists going into the UK, is something called a Permitted Paid Engagement Visa, PPE. So don't get that confused with protective equipment. I just realized when I wrote it down earlier, it's the same as the protective equipment. So it's PPE. Now, before I say anything else, there's something that Alex kindly mentioned when we were talking earlier in the week, something called the permit-free list in the UK. Causes huge, huge confusion, this. Always. And something to say, on the UK government websites, it is not, I am sure, deliberate that it is so confusing. But you will see confusing information that seems to contradict other information across different visa routes. The deal is this: a permit-free festival just means you do not need a certificate of sponsorship. You might still need a visa. So if you see the permit-free list, which is available on the UK government website, you still need a visa, possibly, depending on which country you come from. Secondly, there is something that I've not put on this list. It's called a standard visitor visa, which you can take. It's nearly the same price as the permitted paid engagement visa, but you're only allowed to work at permit-free festivals. Confused yet? Anyone? Total looks of bewilderment in the room if you're looking online. Really, they are looking as confused as you probably are looking at your computer screen right now, or your phone. So the deal is this: forget everything I've just said, except for one thing. The best route in, if you're an artist, the simplest route, is to go for a permitted paid engagement visa. It currently costs, I think, £94. I think it's 94 or £95. You apply for it online, and what you do in order to do that, I made a list this morning. You require, you need a letter of invitation. You need to show that you have sufficient means to support yourself whilst you're in the UK and that you will leave the UK at the end of your visit. So you'll probably have to show tickets in and out, flights or whatever. You apply for all that online, and then you will be sent an appointment in your own country to go and get your biometrics at a visa centre. And that's it. At the moment, TLS visas, who are the places in each of your countries, are the ones that would do the appointments. And the fees are various from very small amounts of money to ridiculous amounts of money for a quick service.
Just going to jump in on this quickly.
Yeah, go for it, Alex.
As well, because
Please.
I think it's very important to mention. So all that information that you see here is really helpful as it's so compact, I think, because especially if you're not a native, like I am, I'm not a native either. So it's really hard going through all of the information that is on the government website. What you will find out very quickly is that there are several options to enter the UK, but it's really hard, especially going through all of the appendix, and there is loads of controversial information online. It's really hard to figure out which one is right for you. So absolutely agreeing here that the permitted paid engagement visa is definitely the one we also will be recommending, and we will be helping you with if you're planning to come to the UK. It is very confusing with this standard visitor visa, because when you start doing some research into it, and the thing is why I'm mentioning this is because I've spoken to artists who have actually done this, and they have applied for this and then came to the UK with it, but it's actually not the right visa for you. In certain situations it is, but there is actually no reason why you would apply for that in the certain situation, obviously, that you come to the UK as a musician for a show or for a few shows. But I've had this case many times in the past, because it's like automatically the visa option that comes up if you Google it. It's just you automatically land immediately on the standard visitor visa, and it gives you some very trivial information about it, and it kind of does seem right for you. But especially if you look at the costs, there is no point in really applying for this one. So yeah, sorry for bringing it up again, but I just think it's very important to mention this, because it's like, it seems like so convenient, and it's like the most likely thing to come up if you Google visa and UK. But yeah, that's definitely, as you can see, not recommended. And another thing that I've noticed is that if you don't apply in advance, the costs that can increase massively. So if you are unlucky, it's probably double the costs. So we've had this a few times. And by last minute, I don't even mean like 2 days in advance. I mean, like, last minute can be probably 3, 4, 5 weeks in advance. So really plan ahead and apply for your visa in time, because otherwise there can be a massive increase of the cost. So I do think that is also quite important to mention here, to stick to this £94 costs here.
That was perfect. Thanks for that, Alex. In fact, following on from what Alex has just said, with a permitted paid engagement visa, you can apply up to 3 months in advance. You can't apply earlier than that. So once you've got your tour fixed, or maybe a few dates fixed, as soon as you get to within 3 months of the application of your entry point, it's very important to do it then. Sorry, you want? Oh no. The thing to say about this, I'll open it up to questions at the end, because then I'll go back on the slides and just go, hey folks, and then I'll stand here and wait for the deluge. The deal is that 3-month period is plenty of time to get your visas back. As Alex was saying, if you leave this late, the fees can go up for one visa as much as over £1,000 for a priority, not priority application, for a priority meeting at the visa centre. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And the UK government outsourced their visa services to something called TLS, which you'll see all over the planet. So it's TLS, Terry Lima Sierra Services. There will be, as I say, links coming back from that. But I'll take a question now if you want to. Just 1 second, we need to get a mic to you. No, so you can be heard online. With you in a second, folks. There we go.
Thank you. I think it's just 2 quick questions. So
Sure.
first about this visa thing. So let's say you're going to tour and then for whatever reason you applied for the visa in advance, you paid everything, and for whatever reason it got cancelled. So do you get a refund?
No.
You lost the money?
Yep.
Okay. Second, you said that you need to prove that you have enough resources to be there for that period. How do you prove that? Do they
Sure.
look at your account, or you need to have a cash in your pocket?
No.
Or how does that work?
I'm glad you raised that. Thank you very much. What you have to do is usually provide bank statements, what you have in the bank. There is a way around this, and it's what I was going to come to anyway, so it's a perfect timing for that question. The deal is, you can come into the UK just with a permitted paid engagement visa. You don't require a certificate of sponsorship, okay? However, it's what I was going to, was it before then? I'll just go back one, I think. Where are we? Yes, what really happens at the border, at the top. The reason I put that is that in both directions, wherever you're going, it depends very much on who you get as you present your passport and your visa, and hoping to God and whoever else is out there that they know the regulations. We have had situations where musicians, I work with many musicians, there are around 300 on my books on the agencies from all over the world, and we've had often occasions where musicians have come into the UK on a permitted paid engagement visa and have been turned around, even though they fulfill all the criteria, because the officer may think that you're not able to support yourself whilst you're in the UK. So what we tend to do, and not just me, but generally within this sector of the business, is to recommend that you get a COS as well, a certificate of sponsorship. It's relatively inexpensive. Why? The reason for that is that the sponsor is responsible and liable to make sure that person does not call on the resources of the UK. In other words, like me, if I give out a COS and somebody comes through the border with it and tries to claim benefits or financial benefits or whatever, then I'm in trouble because I haven't necessarily checked on them enough. So we often recommend that not just a permitted paid engagement visa, but also the COS just gives an extra piece of paper and they say, oh, you've got a sponsor, therefore they are responsible. I hope that it makes things a little clearer on that. Anybody else on that? Is that clear?
So that means that if a band crosses, that means automatically all members of the band, one by one, has to go through this procedure. Yes?
That's exactly right. You cannot get a band visa. This isn't the big problem, but we'll come to the big problem in a moment. But please, another question.
I think it's just follow up. So let's say it's five members of the band, so 3 of them passed and 2 didn't. That could happen, or it's
Yes.
a full band. It's piece by piece.
It's individual. Visas, work visas are always individual because it's for each person. That's the same anywhere in the world, actually, but also coming in the other direction. Yeah, sorry, you wanted to come back?
Sorry, but about the sponsor, again, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but it can be anyone with some higher status in the music business, from the country of origin or from UK. What is the preference?
No, it's usually in the UK, and it can be an individual if they've got a venue, or it can be some festivals have registered. I'm not going to go through the process of what we have to do to register because that's really not necessary. But you need to find somebody who can issue certificates of sponsorship. And there are quite a lot of professionals in the UK that are able to do that. And there are some specialists like myself alongside the agency businesses that do that. And it can cost anywhere, if it's your own artist, sometimes you'll build that into the tour costs. So it might cost £20, £30 per person. Or sometimes it's a bit more depending on what happens. If you go to an external organisation, I've seen sometimes certificates of sponsorship advertised at anything up to £2,000 for certificate, which is ridiculous. That's probably not happening quite so much anymore, and it's not really happening so much in the music business. In actual fact, if I go back to, where are we, the visas one. Tier 5, you notice it says creative and sporting. That's everything from musicians to footballers. So as you can imagine, the sporting side of the industry, depending on who they are and the professional athletics, or, well, that's not much money necessarily, but if it's a footballer, that's why some of the sponsors put out ridiculous amounts of money. You need to find someone in the UK that's a sponsor. And at the moment, there isn't a list, but I don't want to say email me or call me, but there are ways of finding out. So, one second. You were asking about individuals. Now, I'm going to go on to move to another subject. Just going into the EU, you have everyone says, oh, I can get a Schengen visa. Great. I'm a UK band artist or whatever and get a Schengen visa. Well, not exactly, because a Schengen visa with the word employment on it has to be sought from the country in which you're going to work, one of the EU 27. I'm not going to go too deeply into working in the EU because I know a lot of people watching this are wanting to know how to get into the UK. But I will say it's not impossible, it's not necessarily difficult everywhere in the EU 27, and it's easier in some places than others. Let's face it, most of the creative industry wants to maintain the fact that we don't have borders between us. We want to have that richness and diversity that comes out of being able to work together from other countries, and particularly UK into mainland Europe, continental Europe. There's been a great history of great collaborations, and I'm sure it will continue. But there are obviously some problems. As I said on the slide here, individual country work permits and visa requirements change from country to country. Austria, Switzerland, not Switzerland, I always say that, I shouldn't, because it's different for Switzerland. Spain, Italy, France, Germany, they're all different. The same with the tax regimes as well. I put at the bottom, EU states, is there a consistent approach to work for creatives and sports services? No, there isn't, for the same reason. Because the EU as an organisation cannot impose upon its member states that they all do what they want them to do for allowing third country nationals to come into the EU. It's just not happening. It doesn't work.
I've also heard that many times, and I think it's just really important to flag it out because I've read it in interviews and I've seen it in videos that people mention the possibility of a Schengen work permit, so that you literally just can go into the EU and work there, like the Austrians can come to the UK. This is, you have to be very careful with that, because this is something that is non-existent basically, and won't be an option here. So really make sure, look into each country's regulations and figure out what you need, because I've heard that so many times that I think it's really important to mention that this is definitely some misinformation that's going around at the moment, and also like in the last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true, and it's really important, particularly for UK-based artists. And we have a lot of UK-based artists that are in bands with other EU citizens in the UK. So it's a nightmare in both directions, because you might have an Irish citizen with a UK citizen and a German citizen and whatever, and so it's creating massive problems for them. But just to whiz past work permits and visas, in all of this, there's one thing that is going to be the biggest problem of all. And there are ways around it, but it's as well to know about them. And that is carnets. And I'm going to ask anyone in the room knows what an ATA carnet is. It's sort of mixed yes and no. Okay, so I'm going to explain very quickly, because we've only got 10 minutes left, and then I want to open questions, and Alex been coming in. A carnet is simply this. It is a document that you provide at the border to customs officials, showing every item of equipment that you are carrying with you. That means, and it cannot change from time to time going in and out of borders. So if you need a carnet with all your equipment, and you're a guitarist, for example, with 4 guitars and strings and tuners and case. You cannot just put all your instruments on the carnet and use it if you take only one or two of the guitars with you. You have to have a carnet for the equipment you're carrying at the time. The reason being, it's for temporary import of goods. So you're not going to sell the thing when you're in another territory and then the taxman doesn't get his money. Now, the way you do this is in your local Chamber of Trade or Chamber of Commerce in the UK or anywhere else in the territories, or carnet agencies that will do this for you. You list all of your items, literally strings, tuners, screwdrivers. I am serious. We did a tour for Phil Rudd from AC/DC a few years ago, and we had to even put his drum gloves on the carnet, tapes. No, I'm serious. It was ridiculous. But better safe than sorry. Now, the deal is, okay, there's a cost to it. It's not cheap, but it is manageable along with the visa costs. The problem is logistics. So if you've got all your gear going in another van and that gets stopped at the border, and then some customs official who might be a little bored decides to check your carnet, they can stand you there for 2 or 3 hours checking your carnet in and out of the country. If anything is missing on it, you can be charged the cost of the item, because the cost of the item approximately is on the carnet, the serial number if there is one, and everything else. So that is going to be the big problem. And what is going to happen is that in terms of backline, the backline companies in the UK, many of whom are suffering greatly at the moment because of COVID, so prices may come down anyway, are going to do very good business. So you're no longer going to carry in amplifiers or amp tops, or, well, you might if you're willing to do a carnet. So that is a problem we can't get around. That's definite, because there's whatever trade agreement's going to happen, it's still going to be goods. They don't care if you're a musician or you're selling TVs or washing machines or whatever. They're still goods, and they're not usually transported temporarily unless it's the band crew van with a fridge full of beer. Well, that's a different thing.
In
Alex.
terms of carnet, I think it's also good to mention that probably if you're an artist and you have played a European tour before, this is very similar to the procedure that you usually go through when you play in Switzerland. So I've done carnets myself a few times, and I agree it's a proper pain, but it is definitely doable. It takes you some time to get into it, but for example, if you're not just coming to the UK, it's not just something that comes with playing the UK, it's also something that you have to consider when you go to Switzerland. So when you have done this once, obviously it makes the whole process, if you go on a tour through Europe, very much easier, because it will be very similar to going into Switzerland and going out of Switzerland. So it is something that not just comes with the UK, but probably a few of you have heard of it already. It's also something that maybe you've done already, and I think it's very comparable to this.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And in fact, you can use your carnet going into any other state like Switzerland or Liechtenstein, or, believe it or not, the Canary Islands. It's one of the Balearic Islands you actually need a carnet for. I can't remember which one, because it's considered not Spain. Don't ask me why. I have no idea, really. One thing as well, just quickly before I just open this up to questions, is that merchandise. What happens with merch? This is another way in which you're going to be able to get around. There's two things that I have to say here. With merchandise, you have to fill in a customs form as you take your merchandise across the border with the value of the merchandise, all the items on it, and then you have to pay in advance at the border full import duty and full VAT on all of the merchandise. Yeah, I know, but there's a sort of a way around it. The way around it is that the way to do it is have your merchandise created in the country to which you're going. So you have a merch company in the UK, and actually you can get some pretty cheap deals, and maybe have smaller quantities made and then pick it up there. It's completely legal because you're paying VAT and you're not importing it from another country. And vice versa. So depending on where you're coming into Europe, you have your merch done here. It's similar to the back line, actually, but in a slightly different way. It means you're legally avoiding having to go through the hassle of paying tax, etc., on the border. And then when you go back, if you decide to go the hard route and import and go back out again with the gear that you didn't sell, you'd have your form with all of the things you had on it when you went in. Then when you come out, you note which items you've sold. And then a nice customs man or woman will then stand with you counting all your T-shirts or CDs or wristbands or bags. Anyway, so you can see there is a way around that, but that is definite. There's no way around the merchandise thing because it's a good or service. Do you want to say anything, Alex, and then we'll open it up?
Let's open it up.
Okay, right. Lights, please. Lights, please.
I mean, one thing actually to mention before we go into the Q&A is maybe,
Sure.
I've mentioned it to you when we chatted the other day as well. This all seems a lot to consider, and I know that obviously I wouldn't even have thought that I can see anything positive about the whole situation, but there is one thing I do want to mention is maybe to end this with like a kind of positive approach as well, is that the only thing I can notice, and I could notice especially at the beginning of the year, is although everyone was in terms of programming lineups quite hesitant at the beginning, I've really noticed that especially in London and in the UK, people are approaching us as the ACF very actively, which is definitely new. And they are trying to program in a way that they include more artists from abroad and program very internationally, also in terms of setting like making a point in terms of we don't agree with the government decision. We don't support Brexit. We have an international lineup here. We want to have as many different nations included here. And I've noticed that definitely the interest in including international artists has grown here. and that is definitely a very good thing for everyone who wants to come to the UK, because I think it maybe opens up more options to also for us to maybe connect artists from Austria and maybe putting more often a focus on Austrian artists as well and linking up people. So this is probably the only thing in terms of the future perspective where I think this is maybe something actually good. And besides everything else that we've heard today, I do really hope that it is something that we can, especially financially, maybe help you a little bit in kind of also like covering costs for visas. So yeah, if you're planning to come to the UK, please get in touch with us and let us know, because it's always good to be aware. Or even if you already have booked your UK tour, also let us know. Surely there would be a way how we can cooperate.
One thing I'd like to say, Alex, since we're talking to an international audience, when you say giving assistance to anyone wanting to go to the UK, you are referring to Austrian artists.
Yes, I am referring to Austrian artists.
Sorry, everybody out there, just to make that really clear. It's really for Austrian artists. So we've got a few... that could have been a real problem.
In terms of as we are...
We've got a few minutes left, everyone. So in the room, if there's anybody with a question, hands up and we'll bring the microphone to you. Yes.
Hello. So I have two questions.
Sure.
First one is, what's the situation in terms of showcasing? I think South by Southwest had actually some deals with that. You can enter US if you're showcasing. So that's the first question. The second is that, did anyone make like an estimation on, let's say, a band of 5 or a crew of traveling party of like 5 or 6 person, what would they need to be prepared to be paying for, let's say? Yeah.
I can answer both those questions quickly. The first question is with showcase festivals in the UK particularly, and I don't know what's going to happen in the EU, is that there may be special situations like the permit-free list, for example. So if you come from the EU, you probably just need a certificate of sponsorship, or maybe nothing, We don't know at the moment, that's the problem. And really important, what I forgot to mention, it's not just the artists that need a work permit or COS or visa. Your crew do as well. But as well, one other thing I forgot to mention, which is really, really important, getting paid. If you are getting paid financial money or in kind. So that means, depending on what is agreed in time, whether or not the agreements will allow you to come into the country, play a showcase for no money, you do not get paid, and the tax in the UK, HMRC and Majesty's Revenue and Customs agree that the payment in kind, for example, accommodation or backline or whatever, is not considered income. Because then you can still maybe come in just on a certificate of sponsorship. So what was, sorry, the second question? It's an estimate, sorry, it's okay. I just couldn't, I'll repeat it. So has anyone done an estimate of how much this would be for a crew, a band of, say, 5 people, a crew of 2? What are the costs? Now, I haven't personally, because there are different options depending on what the tour is and what they're doing. The simple answer is £95 per person, around €100. Probably a lot less now, more, sorry, because of the way things are going. So probably around €110 per person for the work permit and stroke certificate, the work permit. Depends whether you need a certificate of sponsorship as well, whether you want to cover yourselves. So for a 5-piece band, 2 crew, around €800 to €1,000 for a tour, but that's not per gig. It's really important. It's the tour. And that is for up to 1 month. You have to show contracts that you've got several contracts, etc., when you apply for the engagement visa. So it means that potentially you can come in for a month and the cost's going to be around €1,000 for everyone for that scenario. Anyone else? Yep.
So maybe this is going a little bit further in this topic, but what about in case I'd like to move to London and work there as a musician? How would that work with permits and all that and visas?
I'm trying really hard not to smile at that question. It's a great question, and it's wonderful, and please do. We need people moving backwards and forwards across the territories in both directions to keep things moving until things get better. The question is, you're talking about not permanent residency, because that's something different, but you're talking about something called leave to remain. You're allowed to remain in a particular place. It's the same in Austria, like the way I'm here, and various other territories. At the moment, you would probably go for, depending on your plans, you'd probably go for the Tier 5 Creative and Sporting visa, which is somewhere there. No, not there. Yeah, Tier 5 Creative and Sporting, and that allows you to stay for up to 1 year. But you might want to do that in a different way. The other thing to say, all of these visas, absolutely every one of them, you cannot do any other form of work whilst you're in the UK. You can't go and work in a bar, officially. Whether you do or not, I would advise against it, for obvious reasons. But you cannot do any other form of work. You can only work in your profession, which means you're a musician. So if you go and start working in a bar to supplement your income, you are acting illegally. I don't mean you personally, but don't think you can go into the UK as a musician on one of these visas and then go and work in a bar, etc. You can't. It's strictly on what that is. Otherwise, you have to go in on a different visa, totally different. Strictly speaking, we're over time. Alex, do you want to say anything? Finish off?
Yeah, please, if you are, please don't get freaked out about all of what's going to happen next year, because I do really hope that, as you've seen, there are ways around it and there will be options. And yeah, if you are planning to come to the UK, if you already planned your tour, please go on our website, give me a shout, drop me an email, and let's stay in touch. Even if you're planning to maybe stay longer, or even if you're a musician that is planning to move to the UK, please hit me up and drop me an email and let me know.
Cheers, Alex. Thanks for that. And from my side as well, by all means, reach out to me, not only in my role as running this new website service that takes a bit of time, but I've had some time this last few months. So thanks to everybody who's watching online. Thanks to Waves in their 10th anniversary year in this very unusual setting. Thanks for all of you in the room and the questions. I've got time maybe for one more question. We've obviously covered the subject. So once again, thank you very much. I hope that's been of use. There will be links after this. There are 10 videos going live after this on the links that will appear on the site. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel for regular updates. That's UK Europe Arts Work Info channel. In the meantime, thanks a lot. Keep traveling, keep working, and keep enjoying yourselves and stay positive.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.